Hi, my name's Maddie, and I'm here with Tyler today, and we're going to talk to you about Major League Baseball and how it's being affected by coronavirus. But first, a little bit about me. I'm a second-year MBA student concentrating in sports business. I'm originally from Iowa. I went to the University of Iowa and graduated from there in 2018 before coming to Warsaw. I majored in journalism and sports management. Um, I worked at the athletic department at Iowa in communications and marketing for 3 years. I also did the same here at the University of Oregon athletic department. This past summer, I interned at Burns Entertainment in Chicago, where I specialized in sports marketing and influencer marketing. And with that, I'm going to let Tyler talk a little bit about himself.
So, real quick for you guys, I am from Utah. It's where I'm currently residing. I went to school. I did my undergrad at Utah Valley University, which is actually the largest university in Utah in population. And about 9 months after that, I went to Oregon doing sports business. I did have an intern lined up with the Tour of Utah, but then about a week or so later, it was canceled and things did not work out there. So I picked up a job at a golf course called Gladstone, and it has a really pretty view, guys. And so that's a little bit about me. Maddie and I both have our emails, so if there's any questions after our presentation, like hit us up on the email or talk to us, let us know what we can do. But we'll jump into it with Maddie on a timeline.
So I have a really detailed timeline here about how coronavirus has affected Major League Baseball. You guys can read it if you want to, but I'm just going to go over the key points. So on March 12th, the day after the World Health Organization declared coronavirus a global pandemic, Major League Baseball officially canceled its spring season and pushed back the regular season by 2 weeks. A couple days later, they had their first couple cases of coronavirus among minor and major league players, especially among the Yankees and the Reds. And then they also canceled all their international tournaments that were scheduled. And then officially later in the month, they pushed the season back all the way to the end of May is when it's supposed to start. They also made some major changes to the MLB draft and also to their international scouting. The draft's been pushed back from June to July, and usually it consists of 40 rounds, but this year it's only going to be 5 to 10 rounds. And then also some other key things that have happened at the end of March is on March 27th, the MLB and the MLBPA officially met and decided what they were going to do with pushing back the season as well if it was canceled. Both sides agreed that they're willing to push the season all the way to the end of November if necessary and want to get in as many games as possible. They're also willing to cancel the All-Star game, which is huge on the sponsorship side. And they laid out a financial plan for a 60-day delay and in case of season cancellation. Overall, all 30 teams' owners agreed to pay a lump sum of $170 million each to all players, and they'll pay differently depending if you're a minor league or veteran or a major league player who's not yet eligible for arbitration. And even in the face of cancellation, they'd only have to pay that $170 million lump sum, which they already had to pay through the end of May. And then moving forward, I'm going to let Tyler talk about the different options that the MLB is considering right now in the face of coronavirus.
So there's really only three options that can go forward. So they can cancel the season and just no baseball this year, or that's kind of a worst case scenario, or a more likely scenario is they're either going to play some baseball or all of baseball. Now, depending on what that is yet to be determined. If they want to play a shortened season, they would have to start. If they want to play, the full season, they would have to start with, there's an Arizona option. I don't know if some of you have read about it lately, but there's an option to play all teams in Arizona with no travel, no fans. So Maddie will get into a little more of that coming forward. But basically, these are the three options, and we want to talk about the stakeholders. The stakeholders we want to speak specifically on are the players, the sponsorships, and then the teams in the league. So we want to get into a little bit of those and the benefits and the risks associated with it. So I'm going to pass it over to Maddie for our first one, being the players.
Yeah, so going into the player option, I want to talk a little bit more about rosters as well as the payment that the owners have agreed upon and the Arizona option. So as I said, there's the different payouts laid out there for veteran players as well as newer MLB players and minor league players from that $170 million payout. Another important thing to remember is that if they do go on with the season, rosters are going to be expanded from 40 men to more because, they'll have player injuries as well as we could have a lot of players end up being infected by coronavirus, which is a huge risk, obviously. And with the Arizona deal going through, they're going to try, and even if the season is shortened, they're going to try and play as many games as possible. It could be really brutal. Double headers, many consecutive days of play. And it's just a lot for those players to go through in such a short amount of time. And also, when we talk about the risks and benefits, the potential benefits of playing the 2020 season are obviously higher revenue for players. They're going to get their actual guaranteed salary rather than that just $170 million payout. Also, they have more potential to gain sponsorship revenue, which is huge. And then also potential for playing success. I mean, baseball's competitive. A lot of people, never even make it out of the minor leagues. You're competing for that 40-man roster for a starting spot. If you miss a season, you missed a lot of time in your career. And then talking, obviously, the one benefit to canceling, though, is there would be safer health conditions for those players. They're not being as put at risk for contracting coronavirus. And then also injured players would have the entire season to rest if they're going into the season not at the top of their game. Obviously, the potential risks, like I said, are spreading of coronavirus, especially if they have that Arizona option. There's so many players in one area. And then another thing is a lot of states have outlawed for the time being non-essential surgery restrictions. So a lot of those players who could get injured, such as pitchers with Tommy John surgery, they might not be able to do that. So, I mean, once you get injured, that's the end of your season, basically. And then potential risks of canceling the season are obviously that lost career opportunities, as well as all that potential income being lost, like I said. And then I'm going to pass it over to Tyler now to talk about the sponsors.
Thanks, Maddie. So the sponsors are interesting. I talked with a guy named Matt, who's over the Utah Jazz corporate sponsorships. Now, obviously, the NBA, MLB are a little different, but they do have very similarities. So if the season does go forward in baseball, if they play the season, it's going to be business as usual. The sponsors will still have their spots. It'll just be a little later in the year. Benefits are also that they will have good growth. They expect the third quarter to really be strong with not many people doing anything right now. They're going to be really excited to have a bunch of content to watch and to view. So third quarter could be really strong for these sponsors. And new territory. So if the season does go forward, they could be playing into December, which could lead to, Christmas Day games or Christmas holiday type games, which could be new sponsorship opportunities for this 1 year in baseball. Some of the benefits, if they canceled out, there's really not a lot of benefits. The sponsors would get some refunds with not having the games, so they could have an increase in money that they could spend elsewhere. But it's really a lose-lose situation if no one plays. So no one really wins, no one really loses if it's canceled. But some of the risks associated with it are if the season's canceled, then the sponsors have choices to go into different areas. So if it's canceled, the sponsors could sponsor the news, or they could sponsor local television. They have all this extra money to spend elsewhere. So that's a risk of losing these sponsors to other areas. Now, they should come back because sports is such a high profited area, but for the time it would be lost. And then risks, obviously there's recession opportunities. These sponsors may have lost money that they can't recover. And then the timing, some sponsors need to be out in March and April, and if we're not playing then, they can't really be a part of that time. So with that, I'll go into Maddie real quick for the league and team.
When looking at the obvious benefits, they're mostly all revenue related. In 2019, the MLB produced $10.7 billion in revenue, and they're expected to surpass $11 billion of revenue this year. Obviously, they're probably not going to meet that mark, but I mean, if they had the season, maybe they could come close. When considering media rights revenue specifically, with this 2-month delay, the MLB has already sacrificed approximately $60 million in media rights revenue, and they were expected to produce roughly $1.5 billion in sponsorship, in media rights revenue that they would still probably be able to gain if they were to have the season. And then also, obviously, having the season, they're getting higher sponsorship revenue. They produced approximately $1 billion of sponsorship revenue last season. We're expected to produce similar results this year. And even with the Arizona option, they could probably get a lot of sponsorship in there with CGI technology if needed. And then looking at ticket sales, with having fans, they would obviously benefit from ticket sales, concession sales, and in-stadium merchandise sales. That would not happen, however, if they went with the Arizona option. And then the potential benefits of actually canceling the season, though, are they may be able to cut some of their losses in regards to player salary with only having to pay that $170 million payout per team. And then when looking at the potential risks, um, obviously playing the season, depending on the state of the world, could be a huge liability for player, staff, and fan health. And then also, they could also need to worry about security and things like that. People could be worried about a fan next to them that's coughing. There's just a lot of factors that could go into that operationalize. And then also potential risks of canceling the season are obviously huge revenue loss. They're going to lose that $1 billion they're expected to gain this season. Along with that $1.5 billion in media rights revenue, the MLB also is putting itself at risk for negotiating future deals, as at the end of the season they have negotiations up again with ESPN and Turner Sports. And then also huge staff layoffs. I know each team has committed $1 million so far to pay their staff, but if there's no season, a lot of people are going to be unemployed, both on the league and team side. And with that, I'll pass it over to Tyler to just give our conclusion about what we think is probably going to happen most likely.
So there's really two options that we see, either the full-length season or partial season. The full-length season is what the leagues and the teams and most players want, because this is the financially most liable option. Everyone gets paid, everyone gets their money. But with it going on, we suspect it to be a shortened season. They'll meet somewhere in the middle. That depends on just where things go and when they can get started up. Hopefully the Arizona deal can go through and they can start up as soon as possible. So we think they're going to go this route. People are going to lose a little money, but it's not all the money. It's not going to be the full season they've normally had, but at least they're getting something rather than losing out like the NCAA tournament did with March Madness. So with that, again, if you have any questions, send them over to us. We'd love to answer. There are some of the sources if you want to go in and dig a little deeper on it. But with that, we want to say thank you.